Oh hi, let's chat about the value of swords and some extreme examples. You may have seen the tachi that belonged to Japanese daimyo Fukushima Masanori from the 16th century, allegedly appraised at a value of more than $105 million. Seems hard to believe considering that Napoleon Bonaparte's ebony-hilted gilded sword sold for $6.5 million. That 105 million number is from Forbes 400. I'm going to link the article in the description below. Of course, an obscenely rich people magazine wouldn't try to bamboozle anyone with inflated numbers, right? Jokes aside, I don't know. According to Media Bias Fact Check, Forbes is supposed to be mostly factual, but who checks the fact checkers? Always good to be skeptical. Anyway, 4 factors go into determining the value of a sword. Condition, rarity, materials, labor. Back in history, there would be a 5th factor as well, supply and demand, but that's sort of implicitly covered by rarity. Condition is obvious. A genuine 1,000-year-old sword that looks almost like new would be immensely valuable. A rusty lump of iron with missing parts, not so much. Although sometimes rarity can skew that a little bit. For example, if you confirmed that a certain sword belonged to a general and was used in a famous battle, then identifiable battle damage might actually enhance the value. Here are some examples. This is a longsword from the Arsenal of Alexandria, made before 1419, exceptionally well preserved considering its age. This 10th century Scandinavian sword is in worse condition, but it's quite well preserved considering that it's 500 years older, and many swords from that time are heavily corroded. This Italian or Spanish sword from around 1500 even has parts of the original handle wrap preserved. That's quite unusual, so great condition. Particularly striking is something showcased in an article from June 2023, again linked below. A sword found in Bavaria, Germany from the Middle Bronze Age, over 3,000 years old. It has a typical green patina that bronze starts to develop pretty quickly, that deepens over the decades and centuries, but overall it's perfectly preserved. Quite astonishing really, just how good it looked even just in the ground before cleaning. Rarity is self-explanatory, although it depends on the time frame and the type of object. Something might have been extremely common back in the day, but is now rare. Like for example, artifacts made of organic materials like wood, antler, bone, etc. from the Stone Age, just because they don't preserve very well, but they would have been abundant back then. This is a one-of-a-kind piece of exceptional craftsmanship, a combination sword and wheel-lock pistol from Germany, 1575. Here's an axe pistol of Grand Duke Ferdinand de Medici, 1580, which is not just an odd, unique design, but also exceptionally well crafted and highly decorated. And of course, the fact that it belonged to a well-known, prestigious personality also makes it rarer. If you'd like to see more real-life gunblades and other combination weapons, I've got 2 videos on that in the description below that you might like. Then there's the sword that belonged to Chinese Emperor Qianglong, who reigned between 1735 and 1796, that sold for $7.7 million in 2008. By the way, now in 2024, the value is $11.1 million. Of course, that doesn't mean that the sword is worth more now. It's just good old inflation messing with things, which again reminds us that there's nothing objective and natural about value. It's artificial. If you go out into the wilderness and bring a steak to barter with a tiger, it's going to accept a free meal, and the steak is just the entree. Back in history, swords had practical value as weapons, obviously, the same way guns do now, although some were prestige items or ceremonial objects that weren't actually meant for combat. Of course, the value is also situational, particularly in history. Supply and demand makes quite a difference. Weapons would have been more valuable in times of war, whereas in peaceful times, collector's items might increase in value. And a sword can be either. If we look at market value back in, say, 14th century England, to give you an idea of the general framework, 1 penny would buy you 2 dozen eggs. A laborer would make 1 or 2 pence a day, a carpenter might make around 2 to 3 pence, and a mason would make 5 to 6 pence. Now a simple peasant sword or long knife or machete or whatever you want to call it could cost about 5 pence, while a decent proper sword would be 1 to 2 shillings, and a well-made scabbard would add another shilling. A knight could expect to be paid 2 to 4 shillings per day. So that gives you a rough idea. So then there's material and labor costs. That applies to both original swords made in history and modern and postmodern reproductions. Either way, the costs vary quite a bit. For example, iron and steel would have cost a lot more in the Middle Ages than it does now, while labor would have been relatively cheaper than it is now. The cost of labor is something that people seem to often underestimate or ignore. I've seen plenty of comments complaining about the price of a sword handmade in the United States compared to a sword made in China or India, for example. Now, from a customer perspective, you can say you do get more bang for your buck, or cut for your coin, or slash for your shekel in this case compared to that. Depending on the maker, there may be differences in the quality of the fit and finish and quality control overall, because sometimes corners have to be cut to push the price down, of course. But even if the price lies in the geographical difference, if you will, different economies, to some people, of course, there's an ideological value in something locally made. They prefer to support the economy of their own country, or support craftsmen who are local to their country or even their area. If you want craftsmen to be able to make a living, which we should all want, then you have to pay a bit more. So there is an increase in value, again, artificial, because value in general is artificial. So sometimes people compare, for example, a sword made by Albion, which is made through stock removal. So they grind these blades. They compare that to a hand-forged sword, and they say, why the hell should I pay that much for something that is made like this as opposed to forged? But then they tend to forget that those other swords that they're pointing at are hand-forged, again, in China or India or some other place that pays workers a lot less and that has hopefully lower cost of living. In my collection here, the sword with the highest known value would still be the Albion Knecht. It costs the most. Back when I bought it, it will probably be more now, but it's discontinued, has been for quite a while. But there's another sword here that I'm pretty sure is worth more. This custom falchion here. The video of the making of process should still be on the That Works channel. This one's special because it was custom made for me, and there was a lot of work. Plenty of labor that went into this. I don't know how much this would have sold for. It's still astonishing to me that Matt and Ilya decided to make this for me as a gift. I'm immensely grateful for that. So either way, I have a general idea because I know what handmade swords, especially this fancy, with the wire wrap and the complex grind on the blades, so many details, just knowing how much time and effort went into this and what that typically costs, I have a feeling that this would have probably been at least $2,000, possibly more. And there's of course sentimental value, personal value. There's plenty of other factors that go into determining what a sword is worth, because ultimately you determine what it's worth to you. A sword can be appraised at $105 million, but if nobody's willing to buy it at that price, that doesn't mean all that much, does it? Anyway, hope you found this interesting. Check out my other videos as well. Thanks for watching and take care, folks. And because this video topic was kind of dry by nature, let's round it off with a nice quick cutting compilation for some more action.